Most goalies are the hunted. Ron Hextall was the hunter.
And I didn't even hit him actually, but I just tried to punch him.
He broke the record for goalie penalties. He swung his stick, chased players, terrified the league.
But honestly, it was a mistake.
They called him a psychopath, and he was just getting started. But here's the twist. This chaos somehow led him to the Stanley Cup. How does that even happen?
We don't have to sit here that long to realize what a sharp guy he is, and how he carries himself and how he cares about.
Ron Hextall was born in 1964, and he was born into a hockey dynasty. The game was in his blood. His grandfather, Brian Hextall Sr., was a New York Rangers legend and a Hockey Hall of Famer. His father, Brian Hextall Jr., was a tough-as-nails NHL forward. His uncle, Dennis Hextall, was also a longtime NHL player. Ron grew up in NHL locker rooms, watching men who played the game the hard way. And what he saw in those years would come back later in a way no one expected. The Broad Street Bullies, as they were known, were the most feared, violent, and hated team in hockey. Ron would watch as a kid as the Flyers roughed up his dad and uncle. He later admitted that as a kid, he hated the Flyers for what they did to his family. In a perfect piece of dark irony, that same kid became the most famous Flyer of his generation. Not by escaping that violence, but by carrying it forward. Ron Hextall played hockey, but he was never seen as a blue-chip prospect. He was a late-round draft pick, selected 119th overall in 1982 by the very team he used to hate, the Philadelphia Flyers. But before he could even think about the NHL, he was sent to play junior hockey for the Brandon Wheat Kings. And this is where the first warning sign appeared. This is where the league realized Hextall was different. Goaltenders by nature are supposed to be calm, focused, and passive. Hextall was none of those things. He was a 6'3" menace who viewed the entire defensive zone as his personal territory. He didn't just use his goalie stick to deflect pucks, he used it to slash, chop, and punish any player who dared to skate too close. In the final season of junior hockey, he did something that still echoes. He set a record. It wasn't a record for save percentage. It wasn't a record for shutouts. Ron Hextall set the all-time WHL record for the most penalty minutes by a goaltender in a single season with 117. To put that in perspective, many goalies go their entire careers with less than 20. Hextall had 117 in 1 year. This was such an insane number, so far outside of normal, that it served as a declaration. This player wasn't just wired different. This was a psychopath on skates. A man who seemed to care as much about hurting people as he did about stopping the puck. But that was just the appetizer. The real madness was still waiting for him in the pros. After his junior career, the Flyers assigned him to their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. It was here that the Hextall paradox began to take shape. He wasn't just a goon, he was a phenomenal goalie. In his first full pro season, he played 53 games and won 30 of them. He was so good that he was named the AHL's Outstanding Rookie, winning the Dudley Red Garrett Memorial Award. He was, by all accounts, the best new goalie in the league. But the psychopath was still there. In a heated conference final game, a massive bench-clearing brawl erupted. Every player from both teams spilled onto the ice. He saw the brawl and skated straight out of his crease. He wasn't defending himself, he was hunting. He charged into the chaos and grabbed the first player he could find. When that fight ended, he went looking for another, and then another. By the time the refs finally restored order, Ron Hextall had fought 3 different players in one brawl. And this was the man the Philadelphia Flyers were about to call up. A winner. The AHL's Rookie of the Year, and a certified madman. A goalie who had just proved he was willing to fight an entire team by himself. The NHL had no idea what was coming. He arrived at the Flyers training camp in 1986 as a long shot. A kid fresh out of the minors with a wild reputation. He wasn't supposed to be the star. He wasn't supposed to be the guy, but he won the job. And then he didn't just play, he took over. As a rookie, he played in 66 games, a massive workload. He won 37 of them, proving he was a true number 1 goalie. He was so dominant, so clearly better than everyone else, that he won the Vezina Trophy as the NHL's best goaltender. But he was just getting started. The playoffs began, and this is where the hero side of his story was written. Hextall became a brick wall. He was a man possessed, leading his underdog Flyers team on a long, brutal, magical run. They beat team after team, shocking the league. They made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Their opponents, the 1980s Edmonton Oilers. This wasn't just a team, it was the team. A dynasty, the greatest offensive machine ever built, led by Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier. The Flyers were given no chance, but they had Ron Hextall. He was spectacular. He put the entire team on his back and dragged them into the fight. The series went all the way to a deciding Game 7. In the end, the Oilers' firepower was just too much, and the Flyers lost. They were heartbroken. But then, something happened that almost never happens in sports. When the series was over, the league had to give out the Conn Smythe Trophy, the award for the most valuable player of the entire playoffs. They didn't give it to Gretzky, they didn't give it to an Oiler, they gave it to Ron Hextall. He had been so good, so dominant, clearly the best player on the ice for 2 straight months, that they gave him the MVP award even though he was on the losing team. This is an honor reserved for a tiny handful of legends. It was the ultimate sign of respect. Even the great Wayne Gretzky was in awe. During that series, Gretzky told the press that Ron Hextall was, quote, probably the best goaltender I've ever played against in the NHL. A rookie, the Vezina winner, the Conn Smythe winner, a hero praised by the greatest player of all time. But he was also a psychopath. And during that exact same playoff run, he showed the world his dark side. It was Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final, the biggest stage of his life. An Oilers player, Glenn Anderson, skated by and gave Hextall a cheap shot with his stick. The referee didn't call a penalty. Ron Hextall snapped. A normal goalie would have yelled at the ref. A normal goalie would have moved on to the next save. Hextall wasn't normal. He didn't forget. He went hunting. A few minutes later, another Oiler, Kent Nielsen, went skating near the net. Nielsen hadn't done anything. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Hextall didn't care. He just saw an Oilers jersey. He held his goalie stick with 2 hands like a baseball bat, and he swung it as hard as he could, chopping Nielsen directly on the back of his legs. It was a violent, vicious attack. Nielsen collapsed to the ice. The crowd was stunned. Hextall was given a major penalty. After the series, the NHL suspended him for the first 8 games of the next season.
No question about it when it got to the point where I felt they're doing it. I guess I'm going to have to do something. So.
This was the psychopath moment. And the scariest part was what he said after. He wasn't sorry for the attack. He was sorry it was Nielsen and not Anderson. He was openly admitting he was mad that he had slashed the wrong guy. He told the media, if somebody slaps you in the face, you're going to slap him back. The league's discipline boss was furious. He said there was no justification for any player to swing his stick in retaliation, especially a goalie stick that could cause serious injury. But Ron Hextall didn't care about the league's rules. He had his own. He had just won the Vezina and the Conn Smythe as a rookie, a certified superstar. For most players, that kind of season makes you protect your status, play safer, clean up the edges. Hextall doubled down on the chaos. In his rookie year, he stunned the league with 104 penalty minutes. People said it was a fluke. It wasn't. In his second season, he hit 104 penalty minutes again. Then came the 1988-89 season. This is when he made history. He got 113 penalty minutes. This is still the all-time NHL record for a goalie. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Behind all the fury, Hextall had a weapon no goalie had ever brought to the game. He could shoot the puck and score. He was a great puck handler, almost like a third defenseman. He had talked for over a year about wanting to score. Then on December 8th, 1987, the Boston Bruins pulled their goalie. The net was empty. Hextall got the puck, looked up, and fired it all the way down the ice. It went right in. He became the first goalie in NHL history to score a goal by shooting the puck himself. And just to prove it wasn't a lucky shot, he did it again on April 11th, 1989. This time in a high-pressure playoff game against Washington. He is the only goalie in history to score 2 goals. A goalie who can stop you, score on you, and fight you. That's who Ron Hextall was. Unpredictable, dangerous, completely uncontained. In 1987, Hextall was picked to play for Team Canada, an honor reserved for the best players in the world. He was the backup goalie. During a simple Team Canada practice, Sylvain Turgeon wandered too close to Hextall's net. That was all it took. Hextall lashed out with his goalie stick, cracking Turgeon's arm and knocking him out of the tournament before it even started. But the worst was still coming. The 1989 playoffs. The moment the Psychopath truly surfaced. The Flyers were locked in a brutal series against Pittsburgh. And in Game 5, everything unraveled. Hextall was getting shelled. The Penguins put up 10 goals. He was pulled from the net, put back in, then yanked again. You could see it boiling at him. And then he snapped. He took off after Rob Brown, chasing him around the ice, desperate to fight. When a referee tried to intervene, Hextall shoved him aside. It was chaos. And somehow, the moment that defined him still hadn't happened yet. After the game, everyone said he was out of control. Hextall's response was chilling. If I were as out of control as people say I am, I wouldn't be in the National Hockey League. He truly believed his anger was normal. The Penguins coach said it best. He called Hextall the extreme example of controlled violence. He said the Flyers live and die with it. Hextall's anger was a tool, but it was also a bomb. The Flyers won that series and moved on to face the Montreal Canadiens. And in Game 1, everything detonated. Chris Chelios caught Brian Popp with a flying elbow, a brutal hit that knocked him out of the series. The Flyers were furious. Hextall took it personally. He didn't explode right away, he just waited. Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, Game 5, and now Game 6. The Flyers on the brink of elimination. With the season slipping away, Hextall finally saw Chelios on the ice. And that was it. He abandoned his crease, leaving the net wide open, and tore down the ice. He wasn't tracking the puck, he wasn't thinking about the game, he was locked on to one target. Ron Hextall exploded into Chelios, unleashing a barrage of punches. It was calculated revenge. Hextall later said he did it for his teammate Brian Propp, but the league didn't care about the motive. They had finally reached their breaking point. The NHL hit Hextall with a 12-game suspension, the longest of his career. It was the moment everything shifted. The fines, the penalties, the fury, it had all finally caught up to him. His hyper-aggressive style started to tear his body apart. A Flyers doctor warned that his style made him more likely to get hurt, and he was right. He was hit with a string of injuries. His groin, his hamstring. He was constantly on the trainer's table, missing more and more games. But the trouble wasn't just physical. He still couldn't control the Psychopath. He got suspended again, this time for 6 games after slashing a player in a preseason game. He couldn't even make it to the regular season without attacking someone. The hero was becoming a problem. And in the summer of 1992, the Flyers had enough. They traded him. He was dumped as part of the monster deal for Eric Lindros and sent to the Quebec Nordiques. Hextall was reportedly scared to death to move. He played well in Quebec, but they didn't keep him long. A year later, they traded him again, this time to the New York Islanders. He was on his 3rd team in 3 years. The fans in New York booed him. This was his low point. Then, in 1994, the Flyers made a trade to get him back. Ron Hextall was coming home, but he wasn't the same man. This was the new Hextall, the mature Hextall. The Psychopath was still in there, but he had learned to chain it up. And he became a better goalie than ever. In the 1995-96 season, he had the best goals against average in the entire NHL. He was no longer the crazy kid. He was the smart, calm leader. He was so good that he led the Flyers back to the Stanley Cup final in 1997. They lost the series, but Hextall had proved his point. He had changed. He played his last game in 1999, retiring as a Flyers hero, setting team records for games played and wins. But there was one glaring hole in his story. He never won the Stanley Cup. He lost in the final 2 times. The one thing he wanted most, he never got. This is where the story takes its last turn. Ron Hextall did not leave hockey. He just left the ice. He put on a suit and tie. He started working as a scout, then he took a job with the Los Angeles Kings as their assistant general manager. And in 2012, the Los Angeles Kings won the Stanley Cup. Ron Hextall, the executive, was a Stanley Cup champion. His name was finally carved into the trophy. The madman who had set records for fighting had to stop playing, put on a suit, and become a boss to finally get his hands on the cup. What part of Hextall's saga is the most unhinged? The slashes, the goals? Hit the comments, you beauties. And don't just lurk there like a healthy scratch. I need answers. If you're into deep dives on absolute weapons like this, smash subscribe. And if you want to back the boys, hit join. We'll save you a stall. Just don't take more penalties in the comments than Hextall did in '87, or you're getting tossed faster than a goalie stick at a ref's ankles. Figure it out.